All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive on this thing called multi-GPT.
Okay.
It's interesting because it sounds like it's like a whole team of AI experts,
Right.
like all working together to get something done.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the angle we're going to take today. So,
Mhm.
so what is it about this multi-GPT that makes it so different from
Yeah.
just a regular GPT?
It uses different versions of GPT and gives them distinct roles. So you'll have like
Okay,
one that's a GPT-4
interesting.
that will be used for research, and then
Okay.
it's able to use the internet. And then you have another one that's using GPT 3.5 that will store all the memories and then summarize long documents, so you don't have to.
Wait, so you're telling me this thing can go out and
Yeah.
access the internet and like find information?
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
It can interact with the web,
Oh, wow.
which is a whole. Oh.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what kind of
Uh,
potential does that?
well, that's a huge leap.
Yeah.
I mean, it really opens the door for all sorts of things. You can imagine automating things like scheduling and
Oh, wow.
booking your travel, even like conducting market research for you.
Okay, so like practical applications.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a
Yeah.
real digital assistant in a way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I'm like a
Hmm.
marketing agency owner,
Oh, okay.
right?
Sure.
How could I use
Let's say multi-GPT.
you need to launch a new campaign.
Okay.
Multi-GPT can analyze your customer data,
Uh-huh.
identify trends, generate content that's targeted to specific demographics.
Okay.
It can manage that campaign across different platforms.
Wow. So
Like all while you're focusing on the big picture stuff.
so it's basically like having a whole marketing team working
Exactly.
24/7 behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty amazing. What about
Yeah.
like financial institutions? Could they use this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Financial institutions can use it to analyze market trends,
Okay.
identify investment opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
manage risk.
And what about healthcare?
Oh, healthcare is another great one.
Okay.
It could streamline patient intake,
Mm-hmm.
analyze medical records for potential risks, even help create personalized treatment plans
Oh, wow.
based on individual patient data.
Okay, so you're telling me that this is kind of a game changer?
I think it is, yeah.
But how do I get it up and running? How do I like...
Well, it does require some technical know-how.
Okay.
You'll need to have,
Okay.
you need to know Python programming.
Okay.
You need an OpenAI API key,
Mm-hmm.
but the installation itself is fairly straightforward.
Okay.
You clone the multi-GPT repository, install the components,
Okay.
configure your API keys, and there you go.
All right, so it's not drag and drop, but it's
Right.
doable.
Exactly.
Okay, what about these things you were talking about before, like the memory backends? What are those?
Well, just like we have different ways of organizing our thoughts, multi-GPT needs a system to manage all this information that it's processing.
Okay.
And that's where memory backends come in.
So
So
that's
there's
it.
different options, and they all have their own strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, so it's not one size fits all.
No, it's not.
So what are some of the options?
Yeah.
And which one might be right for me?
One option is Pinecone, which is a cloud-based vector database.
Wait a minute, hold on a second.
Okay.
What's a vector database?
Okay, so imagine you're trying to represent the meaning of words in a way that a computer can understand.
Okay.
So vector databases use these things called embeddings, which are basically numerical representations of those words.
Okay.
It's like a code that captures the essence of a word. And Pinecone is really good at handling these embeddings, especially when you're dealing with large amounts of data.
So Pinecone is for managing massive amounts of information.
That's right.
Okay, got it. What else is there?
Another option is Redis,
Okay.
which is known for its speed and efficiency. So if you need to access data quickly,
I like speed.
Redis is a solid option.
Okay.
And it's relatively easy to set up and use, even if you're not a coding expert.
All right, so Pinecone, Redis, what else?
Then we have Milvus,
Okay.
which is an open source vector database
Yeah.
that can handle massive data sets.
Got it.
So if you're dealing with a ton of information, Milvus is built for that.
Okay, and what about Weaviate? I've heard of that one too.
Weaviate is interesting because it excels at semantic search.
What
So
is
it doesn't just match keywords.
that? Okay.
It's trying to understand the meaning and context of your search.
Oh, so it's like having a research assistant.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that actually gets what you're looking for.
I like that.
Yeah.
So we've gone from like the basic idea of multi-GPT
Yeah.
to all these different use cases
Right.
and even how to set up like the memory.
Mhm.
But there's one more thing I want to talk about.
Okay.
And it's this continuous mode thing. What is that all about?
Continuous mode. Yeah, this is where things get really futuristic.
Okay, lay it on me.
All right,
Yeah.
so continuous mode, it allows multi-GPT to run completely autonomously, like no human intervention is needed.
So this thing can just, like, run on its own.
It's basically like a team of AI experts
Yeah.
working 24/7, constantly learning,
Yeah.
adapting.
So that's both amazing and a little scary.
Yeah.
I mean, what about control? What if it starts doing things we don't want it to do?
You're right to be cautious.
Yeah.
Continuous mode is powerful, and with any powerful tool, it needs to be used responsibly.
Okay.
So one of the key challenges, I think, is ensuring that the AI's goals are aligned with human values.
Okay, so we can't just, like, set it loose and hope for the best,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So how do we make sure it's, like, operating ethically?
Well, it's complicated,
Yeah.
but it's something that researchers are working on.
Okay.
One approach is to develop like these clear ethical guidelines for AI development and deployment. For example, the European Union has proposed regulations to make sure that AI systems are transparent,
Right.
accountable, and that they respect fundamental rights.
That's good to hear that people are thinking about this stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so back to continuous mode. Can you give me, like, a real-world scenario
Sure.
where it could be really helpful, but also maybe highlight some of the risks?
Okay, so let's say you have a financial institution
Okay.
using multi-GPT and continuous mode to monitor like the global markets.
Okay.
The AI could analyze all that real-time data, identify emerging trends, and even execute trades automatically
Wow.
based on predefined parameters.
That sounds amazing for a trader,
Right.
but what could go wrong?
Well, one risk is that the AI could misinterpret data
Okay.
or make decisions that lead to losses.
Oh, yeah.
There's also the concern that it could be hacked or manipulated.
Oh, right, yeah.
So there are definitely risks involved.
Okay, so high risk, high reward, we need to be careful.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the people behind multi-GPT.
Okay.
Who are these developers, and what's their vision for this project?
Well, multi-GPT is the brainchild of Max Rumpf.
Okay.
He's a software engineer and AI enthusiast.
Okay.
He's really passionate about open source development,
That's great.
and he believes that AI should be accessible to everyone.
I like that philosophy.
Yeah.
So what's his ultimate goal for multi-GPT?
Well, he sees it as a platform
Okay.
for exploring the full potential of AI collaboration.
Yeah.
He really believes it can revolutionize industries, streamline processes,
Okay.
and enhance our lives.
Okay, but it's still experimental, right?
Yeah, it is.
So what are some of the limitations or the challenges they're facing?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is cost.
Okay.
Running these multiple GPT models requires a lot of computing power, which can be expensive.
Yeah, that makes sense. What else?
Another challenge is accuracy and reliability.
Okay.
Multi-GPT is only as good as the data it's trained on.
Right, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
Okay, are there other areas where they could improve it?
Yeah, I think making it more user-friendly.
Okay.
Right now, you need to have a pretty high level of technical expertise to use it,
Yeah.
but the goal is to make it accessible to a wider audience.
Okay, well, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, so even with those improvements, it's still pretty complex.
It is.
What advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out with multi-GPT?
I would say start small
Okay.
and focus on a specific use case.
Okay.
Don't try to do everything at once. Just
Right.
identify one problem or task that multi-GPT could help with.
Okay, and experiment.
Yeah, and just experiment and see what works.
Okay, so break it down into manageable steps.
Exactly.
What are some practical tips for using it effectively?
Well, one tip is to be really clear about your goals.
Okay.
What do you want multi-GPT to do?
Mm-hmm.
How will you measure success?
All right.
Once you know that you can start experimenting with different prompts and configurations.
Okay, so give it a clear roadmap.
Yeah.
What else?
Pay attention to the data you're feeding it.
Okay.
The quality of the data will determine the quality of the output.
Right.
Make sure it's accurate and relevant and unbiased.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the technical side of multi-GPT,
We have.
but I think it's time to step back and look at the bigger picture here.
Okay.
What does multi-GPT tell us about the future of AI?
I think multi-GPT is a great example of how AI is becoming more of a collaborator.
Okay.
It's not just a tool anymore.
Interesting.
It's like a partner.
Okay.
It's a glimpse into a future where humans and AI work together to solve problems and drive innovation.
So the lines are getting blurred between human and artificial intelligence.
Oh, that's right.
That's exciting and kind of scary at the same time.
Yeah,
What does it even mean to be human in this AI-powered world?
That's a really good question, and it's one that we need to keep asking ourselves.
Yeah, as we develop these technologies, we need to think about the implications.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's take a minute to recap what we've learned about multi-GPT.
Okay.
There's been a lot of information.
It has.
We started by talking about the basic concept,
Mm-hmm.
how it uses different GPT models.
Right.
We talked about how it can access information from the internet,
Yeah.
summarize documents,
Mm-hmm.
even interact with websites. Then we talked about some specific use cases.
Yeah, like in marketing and finance and healthcare.
Right, and we even got a little technical talking about the memory backends.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about continuous mode,
Right.
where it runs autonomously. We talked about ethical guidelines
Definitely.
and responsible development. And we talked about some of the challenges.
Yeah, like cost and data quality and user friendliness.
Okay, so that's a lot to digest.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I have one final question for you. We've talked about all the amazing things multi-GPT can do, but let's be real. Could this be the start of AI taking over jobs?
Mm.
I mean, a lot of people are worried about that.
It's a valid concern, for sure, but I think AI, including multi-GPT, has the potential to change jobs, not necessarily eliminate them.
Okay, so instead of like replacing us, it's
Yeah.
more about...
Yeah, think about it. Instead of spending hours on tedious tasks like data entry or research, you could have multi-GPT handle those things while you focus on the more strategic and creative parts of your work.
So it's like AI handling the grunt work and freeing us up too.
Exactly. It's about humans and AI working together, each leveraging their own strengths.
That's a much more optimistic outlook.
Yeah.
But even if it does create new opportunities, there's going to be a learning curve, right?
Yeah.
So how do we prepare for this AI-powered future?
I think education and training are going to be key.
Okay.
We need to equip people with the skills to work alongside AI, to understand its capabilities and limitations and how to use it effectively.
So like what kind of skills are we talking about?
Think about courses on prompt engineering, data analysis, AI ethics. These are going to become increasingly important.
So it's like learning a new language, the language of AI. And that brings us to another important point, ethics. As AI gets more powerful, how do we ensure it's used responsibly?
It's the question we need to keep asking ourselves.
Yeah.
We need to develop these ethical frameworks for AI development guidelines that prioritize transparency, fairness, accountability, and we need to have open conversations about the potential impact of AI on society, both the good and the bad.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the human values that guide its use.
Exactly.
It seems like we've covered a lot of ground today, from the technical details of multi-GPT to these bigger questions about the future.
It's been a fascinating discussion.
If you're a busy professional looking to stay ahead of the curve, I think multi-GPT is definitely worth exploring.
It's a powerful tool that could really change the way you work and think and innovate.
But remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely. We need to use this technology wisely and ethically.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of multi-GPT.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and engaging.
And maybe even a little bit mind-blowing.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.